in progress.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Against All Odds. And as I start every podcast saying, this is purely selfish podcast because I only get inspirational people on that I want to talk to, and today is no exception. So I'm really excited and honoured to announce that I've got Dax Moy with me, the godfather of mindset, even though we said grandfather. Best-selling author, public speaker, and just an absolute inspiration to me. So welcome to the episode, Dax. How are you?
Thank you. I am very, very well, thank you. All good in the hood. I'm going through a kind of a nice phase with work at the moment, and a nice phase with family. So, and I'm just about to jump on a plane in a week or two off to Thailand again. So off for another 8-week trip there. So all good, all good.
All good. I feel very lucky to have you in the country at the minute. And so why are you based over in Thailand?
I'm not really based there. I just go there a lot. I have my home here in Essex. I'm not a real Essex boy. I'm a fake. I moved out here about 15 years ago from central London. But Thailand is I would say it's my spiritual home. I honestly have very little in the way of kind of national pride about being British or anything like that. And when I go to Thailand, I really do feel like as I step off the plane, it's like everything, the very pores of my being will just kind of relax, and I go, oh, I'm home again. That's what it feels like. We're not quite at the place of being able to. Not being able to, that's incorrect. We're not quite at a place of wanting to live there permanently just yet. We got grandchildren and stuff that we're, kind of the last few years that have come into our lives, and we don't want to be so far away from them that it becomes hard to be active grandparents. But our lives are kind of now flipping back and forward to, kind of 6 to 8 weeks at a time, being out there and then coming home for 6 to 8 weeks and going back and that kind of thing. So my upcoming trip, I'm on my 73rd trip to Thailand. So it's,
oh, blimey.
it's quite a few.
Yeah. So how long have you been in the mindset game for? It's a long time now, isn't it?
Mindset game. Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't have an aversion to that word because I see the intention of it. Mindset game. When I was truly in the mindset game was when I was a personal trainer. So I started out 26 years ago as a personal trainer. And obviously, when you very first start out, it's really mostly about the physical. It's about kind of pushing people through workouts. And then you get to see that the workouts aren't enough, and you start to lean into nutrition, and you go, oh, we've really got to get on top of the nutrition. And now you've dialed in workouts and you've dialed in nutrition, and people then start saying, well, if you can boil down, and it's still true to this day, if you can boil down the real problem most people face is, I know what to do, I just can't seem to get myself to do it. That's the real challenge. And so then I became really, really interested in, at the time, the mindset aspect of things, to try and answer that question. And my earlier answers were really related to things like motivation, willpower, the idea of wanting it badly enough, and all of that kind of stuff, which, they all still have a relevant place. They just don't have as big or as a relevant place as they do. So they don't have now that same big relevant place as they did back then when I first got into that side of things. And I'm very, very grateful. I have been affected by PTSD as a result of my time in the tsunami and a lot of stuff that I saw there. And I was gifted with this experience of realizing that setting goals, wanting it badly enough, developing willpower, and all that kind of stuff only worked in certain circumstances. And as much as I was still the same guy, I still knew everything about setting goals. I could still push myself harder than most people I knew. I could still say, kind of screw it, let's do it, and throw myself into the deep end. But there were things that stopped working when I was in the throes of PTSD, and was like, in the early days, it was really scary to meet yourself as a very different person with a very different, you go, oh shit, everything I thought I knew about myself and everything I thought I knew about how life works and how getting stuff works and achieving things works, all of that was thrown out the window. I was like, shit, like, where do I go from here? And then after that, it became really interesting to me, like, okay, so maybe the stuff I've been doing around mindset and goals and self-esteem and all of these kind of bits, they were useful up to that point for working with a particular kind of brain, and a particular kind of brain that wasn't necessarily that deep in the shit.
Yeah.
But what about if there are other things that a brain wants, needs, desires when threat is present, when kind of, so I use the term threat. Kind of, for most people it's stress or anxiety, or people might call them negative emotions, right? What if the brain works differently and has a different set of operating systems when those things are present? And it turns out that they do.
Yeah.
And so that's been, whilst mindset is still, I understand it, and it's still part of the overall language. For me, it's kind of really getting into going beyond mindset and getting into brain set. What is your brain set right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And mind is a function of brain, right? So
Yeah.
kind of when, if brain is not happy, then mind, you can override it to a degree, but you can only do that for short periods of time usually.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't run from it. You definitely can't run from it.
That's a bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah, that's kind of, I've been in it for 26 years. As doing everything from being a personal trainer to being a health, nutrition, mindset, neuroscience educator. So kind of within all of those areas. So running courses and seminars and workshops around the world. I still work one-to-one with high level, what I would call high level leaders. So CEOs, members of cabinets, and members of kind of governments and things like that around the world. Actors, actresses, all that kind of stuff, and so that's my one-to-one business is still in that area, and
Yeah,
I run my online academies.
that's amazing. The amount of people that you've helped over the years is just so impressive. It's like thousands and thousands,
Oh
isn't
yeah,
it?
yes, it's interesting actually. Like obviously, I take no credit in terms of what people have gone on to achieve since working with me. That's by the by. But it's interesting. I look across entire industries like the personal training industry or the coaching industry and stuff, and I see it's wonderful to see like all these people that are now names and figures in their own right. And I'm thinking, oh, they used to work with me, and they used to work with me, and they came on that course, and they were on that seminar, and like it is interesting when you see like the tendrils of connection kind of going
Yeah,
out across everywhere.
like you've set them on the path.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing.
that's a really nice
I'd take that as a win. I'd be like, I
thing.
did
I did that.
that. I
They
did
would be
it.
nothing without me. Where's
Yeah,
my
take it as a
percentage of
win.
royalties?
Yeah, 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 exactly. So I've had loads of questions come in when people like said, "Oh, I just announced I'm interviewing Dax, like the godfather of mindset. What are your questions?" I got a lot of questions coming, but the first one was quite interesting. Why do people leave it until they're in a really shit state before they try and improve themselves?
I think the easiest, simplest, and most elegant answer of the lot from that is that the sense of something to lose drops dramatically at that point. At that point, you're at the fuck it moment. There's not really much to lose anymore. While you're still at the in any level before you reach that kind of that dire, oh my god, everything is shit, and I might as well dive in. There's always a sense that there's something to lose. There's always a sense that the cost of the change might be higher than the potential benefit, or that maybe there won't be any benefit at all.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it is like balancing a bank account. People are constantly going, yeah, I know working with this guy, for example, is going to be 4 or 5 grand, but it's 4 or 5 grand I really can't afford to lose. And therefore, I'm just using money as an example because it's the easiest one to see. And therefore I won't do it. And yet you're now spending 3, 4, 5 years of your life struggling with the thing that maybe the 4 or 5 grand might have solved. And in much
yeah,
the same way as it happens with money, it happens with other areas of our lives, right? Kind of we've been hurt in relationships, and so what we decide is that we're never gonna fall that deep and that hard in love with someone again. We're never gonna extend that much trust. And so all that happens now is that we live lonely, right? And
yeah,
we live, we might be bumping uglies occasionally with people and getting having sex and stuff, but we never really get deep into the relationship. And at some point that becomes extremely lonely, and at some point that loneliness extends out to, oh, what if it doesn't get any better, and
yeah,
what if it doesn't, and then that extends out into, oh shit, well there's nothing really to lose, I might as well get back in the game and meet people. But it often takes us getting to the point where the damage that's being done by our indecision, or in fact, it's not an indecision. It's the damage that's being done by our commitment and our decision to stay as we are is actually costing us a lot more than the cost to fix it. And I
Yeah.
think that's the simplest answer. Obviously, there's nuance within that, and there's a whole bunch of other things, but I think that's the simplest and most elegant answer, really.
Yeah, I sometimes find a lot of people as well that have been through something like a relationship breakup or something, or they've probably tried a business or something and it's not worked out. Like limiting beliefs,
Hmm.
like like once it's not gone right once, then they can't do it again. So how do you get somebody through that? Because that's quite a sticking point. Because a lot of people don't see their limiting beliefs, do they?
Yeah, and clearly we all have limiting beliefs,
Mm.
but most of the time our limiting beliefs are nothing more than poorly defined beliefs, right?
Yeah,
That we usually give too much weight to, right? So you know we live in a really strange times at the moment, right? That particularly these last few years,
mm.
COVID, post COVID, and all that kind of stuff, where information flies at us rapidly, and sometimes we will either go one of two ways. We'll just see something that already meets a belief system that we've got in our head, and we'll go, "Oh, that was a missing piece. I believe in that now. Believe in it entirely. Definitely was a conspiracy. Definitely was this. Definitely behind it, right?" And you've got the other people who are kind of completely the opposite, and they'll say, "No, that's ridiculous, and how could you even believe that?" And there's no scientific validation to back up any of the things that you're saying, but you're just jumping to that conclusion. So which one is right? Right? we
Yeah,
don't we don't necessarily know straight away, but what we do know is that people will stick with the behavior that most closely matches their identity at the time. Okay, so
yeah,
the biggest threat to a human being is to have somebody tug on the strings and start to unravel their identity, right?
yeah,
Weirdly enough, though, this is exactly what a coach does. A good coach unravels your identity one thread at a time, but then helps you to thread it back in and put it back into its place in that big tapestry and that you call life, right? And weaves everything back into place. But in pulling every string out, my phone is buzzing for some reason in the background. In pulling every string out of that tapestry, you're supposed to look at it and you're supposed to say, what does this string mean? Like when I say the word love, what do I mean by love? Because clearly, when I say I love my wife, I don't mean it's in the same ballpark, but I don't mean the same kind of love as loving my children. And when I say I love my children, I don't mean the same kind of love as saying I love a cup of coffee in the morning, right? Or I
yeah,
love
yeah,
being a coach, right? So that one word can encompass a whole variety of things.
yeah,
And the brain has a tendency to take these definitions that we use very literally. And then within our subconscious, it will hold on to each one of your definitions and it will do quick math all the time. And it'll go, no, no, yes,
mm.
no, yes, no. And it's based on nothing more than the definitions you've already put into place for the words that you use to describe what's going on in your life and the words that you use to describe the important things. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it really comes down to explore, like pulling out those threads and exploring and redefining and saying, like, this is a big part of the work that when clients first come to work with me, the very first things that we do is start to unravel. Like, you just said these words. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? And when you talk about like I have them define love and sex and happiness and success and all kinds of like, what do you mean? And then what don't you mean? Right? Because in order to get to what you do mean about something, you have to be really, really clear. I call it ESP, right? And it's not the kind of the whole brainy ESP kind of thing. It's exact, specific, and precise. People that can use exact, specific, and precise language about what they mean tend to have a better impact in the world because people get them quicker, right?
yeah,
They tend to have a better relationship with themselves because they understand what when I say something, and that's the first relationship and it's the most important relationship. If I say something, am I just blurting out words that could mean any kind of convolution of different words or different meanings? Or am I saying something that's really, really specific? No,
yeah,
when I say this, I mean that. When I say
yeah,
that, I mean this. Right? Most people are struggling because of their vagary. And in linguistics and in science, there's this term granularity, right? And granularity really means the ability to kind of get down to the grains of words, like kind of keep breaking words down until you get to the core essence of them. It's a bit like, I don't even know if it's true, but a good example of it that I've heard before is that, for example, and I know it's not a popular word for some reason, you're not allowed to say it, but kind of it's Eskimos, right? Kind of that was the term that I was brought up with, like Arctic North American Indians were
Why
called.
can't we say that word?
I don't know. Apparently,
Oh, right.
but I do apologise if there are any Eskimos watching this and don't really want to be. And I don't say that facetiously. I just don't really know.
Yeah.
Apparently, amongst Eskimos, there are like 110 words for snow. Right, there are
Right.
110. So kind of they look out in the morning and they don't just say it's snowing. There's a specific type of snow that's coming down right now, which will have knock-on impact to the clothes that they wear that day, what they do and don't do, where they do or don't go, and all the rest of it. That's granularity. That's a precision of language. If
Yeah.
you can get much more precise about your language, both to yourself first, and then sharing exactly what you don't mean with other people, you're in a very, very different place, and your experience of transformation and your experience of overcoming some of your blocks diminish. I mean, it's not like just knowing a word diminishes a thing entirely, but it helps you work on the right thing. Because
Yeah.
if I know it's a certain type of snow and I'm going to wear a certain type of clothing and I'm going to go to a certain type of place and avoid this kind of place, is that or isn't it going to shape my day? And is what I do during my day going to shape my outcomes? Of course it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know,
And it's
it's
exactly
so
the same.
right. Language is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like when people say, "I just want to be happy," and then you say, "Well, what does that look like?" And then all of a sudden they can't actually answer you, and it's very vague. It's like, "I
Yeah.
want good health, and I want my family to be all right," but it's so very vague that
Right.
you just kind of throwing paint on the wall and hoping it sticks, really.
Absolutely. So the brain's a pattern recognition machine, right? That's really what it is. It's a pattern recognition machine. Like the very fact that you're able to operate in day-to-day life is because you've been exposed to those patterns so many times that you have a vague sense of meaning. You can walk on that section of floor, but you shouldn't walk on that. And you can walk over those things with barefoot, but see that glass stuff over there, you shouldn't walk on that with barefoot. Your brain has picked up patterns. So it's a pattern recognition machine. It uses those patterns to create predictions of what will happen if you engage with that material, or if you follow through on that pattern. It uses those predictions to create the appropriate responses, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I think you should walk around that broken glass, not over it. You should do this, right? And it uses those responses to create actions, which then lead to outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? Pattern recognition machine. That's what it is. And language is a big part of our patterns, and are much more important than we tend to give it credit. Much more,
Mm.
right? And so how most people are aware, and they've been told from young usually, be careful how you speak to yourself, right? And kind of
Yeah.
say that about yourself. You shouldn't say that to yourself, and it's absolutely right. But it's just kind of left at this quite global level, like, oh, be kind to no, don't just be kind to yourself. And sometimes, for example, being kind to yourself is the worst thing you can do, right? You
Yeah.
should
Because you'll never move.
always
Yeah.
right. You should always be fair to yourself, but sometimes in an ideal world, we'd always be kind to everyone all the time. But kindness is a subjective thing, right?
Yeah.
Me staying in bed for the next 3 months because I'm feeling depressed might feel like I'm being kind to myself. It might be really unfair to myself,
Yeah.
right? So again,
Yeah.
it's these distinctions in words and how we use them, and how we use them to give our brain the base material to make those predictions, to create those responses, to formulate those actions, to get those results. And it's a pathway, and if you change any part of the path, you change the entire path.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a lot one of those things when people tie their values to them as well. It's interesting. I went to a mental health seminar at the weekend, and somebody asked the crowd about their values, and literally pretty much everybody in there just said loyalty, honesty. That was all very vague. How do you go around kind of making people realize actually what their values are, instead of the generic kind of what people should say?
Yeah, there are three elements to really having a true value versus having so many things that look like values, and they're well intentioned, by the way. They're very well intentioned, and people that believe they hold them as values really do believe they hold them until they meet themselves doing things in opposition to them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
My value is truth, but I'm not averse to telling some white lies, and I'm not averse to this. And now, like, before I jump into the answer to this, just be aware, like, values are aspirational. They don't mean that we never deviate from them. They're like a compass. You hold a compass that's pointing north, right? But sometimes there's going to be a building or a forest or a river or something in your way, and you have to go around, you skirt around it, and then you try and get back on your compass bearing again, right?
yeah,
Values are not intent. Like, I meet so many people who say, I feel like a complete hypocrite because I was off my values. Like, no, you're going to spend a lot of your life off your values. It's values that bring you back to true north.
yeah,
Your life true north, right? But how do we define? How do we get to these clear values? Then there's a process I teach. It's define, refine, and align, right? So define, to the best of your knowledge. Describe the word, right? I said love, okay, but is there different types of love? Well, yeah, of course there is. Okay, so break those down then. There's love of family, there's love of people, there's love of myself, there's love of stuff. In what ways are they similar, but in what ways do they differ? Right, get clearer. Right, well, kind of love with my partner also include, it's not the be all and end all, but it includes sexual intimacy and things like that, kind of, right? And all of these different elements, and we put them in. Second phase is define, what is it not? Okay, well, you know love for me with my partner is not control. It's not control or being controlled. It's not having excessive expectation. This idea of, most relationship challenges are created by expectations rather than agreements, right? I
yeah,
have
yeah,
an expectation that because you're my partner, like, this is what life's going to look like, and this is what we're going to be into, and this is where we're going to. Well, hold on, I never agreed to that. But now,
yeah,
because of my expectation, I spend half of my time with you frustrated and pissed off, and not enjoying the relationship. And that this now has me looking elsewhere and thinking that this isn't the relationship for me, right?
yeah,
Maybe it's not, but it's for the wrong reasons that it's not. It's because I come into it with expectations,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
That makes sense.
refinements, looking at what a word isn't, and then the alignments, right? The align, so define, refine, align. The alignments look like, if I were living that word in the way I just defined it, what would it look like? What am I doing? What am I doing out in the world? What am I doing today to demonstrate love,
Yeah,
and love in each of its different kinds? Love to myself, love to my partner, love to my kids,
yeah,
my love of coffee, right?
yeah,
How am I demonstrating that? If I really love coffee, would I really go out and buy the cheapest instant that I could possibly find, right? Or would I spend a bit more on the brand that I really like, and that kind of gives me pleasure every time I have a cup of it? Like, all of these kind of things. Are you living in accordance with your definitions? We are
mm,
we are happier in life to the degree that our definitions, like our experience of our definition, is as close to the definition as itself, is actually the best definition that I can give you of happiness, right?
yeah, yeah,
I define something, and I'm living my life really close to that definition, go, I actually feel quite happy in life. It's when we have a definition or no definition, right? Because when you've got no definition, it's a target you can't hit, so you're all over the place,
yeah.
right?
Just wandering through life,
Yeah.
hoping for the best.
Or you have one definition, but you're acting in opposition to it, or you're off target of it all the time. That, to the brain, that causes discomfort, because, again, the brain is a pattern recognition machine, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It says, I know the pattern. Like, I know you've said it's really important that we go north, but you keep walking south. What's going on? And it gets pissed off. It gets agitated. You said that the most important thing in your life is to find happiness and true love, but you keep hooking up with people that are treating you badly, and you're walking south when you said you were going to go north,
yeah,
right? That's where unhappiness comes from. Unhappiness is an agitated brain that knows that it's working in opposition to its pattern, to its that pattern recognition, and it's constantly reminding you, because there's no such thing as a good emotion or a bad emotion. All emotions are just signals for something that the brain considers important. Yeah,
yeah.
and
That's
that's
it.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. I had a lot of questions, surprisingly, of a group of ladies that are actually smashing it, and working towards goals. But a lot of the questions were about self-worth. which I was quite surprised by. So these are people that are heading towards the goals in areas that they absolutely love, but still lacking in self-worth. What's going on there?
Basically, it comes back to some of what I was just saying there, right? First off, in order to measure anything accurately, you need a clear definition of it. So if the definitions are vague, you're always going to feel like you're off. And if you always feel like you're off, you feel like a diminished sense of value in that thing, right? You go, well, if I can't explain to you why, you know, that car is the most important and like aspirational vehicle of my life, and like I've got so many. But I own a 20 or 19-year-old Land Rover Discovery that I bought brand new. It was the I bought it absolutely brand new off the lot at the time, and I bought it because Bob Proctor personally challenged, you know, from The Secret, right? So he was my coach for a while, right? And Bob Proctor challenged me to buy it because I was so uncomfortable spending large amounts of money on myself. He challenged me into buying that. Right? I was like, oh, and you know, it was really uncomfortable for me to buy it. It was like it was really, really hard. But it has a story related to it now, right? So that Land Rover is in need of more work again, and it's going to cost. And I'm like, and every time I'm on the edge of getting rid of that Land Rover, I'm like, but it has a story attached to it. That's the Bob Proctor Land Rover, right? It has this whole kind of sense of meaning to it. A lot of people's definitions for what's important to them in life are really, really vague. Right? That's the first part. So that comes back to what we just spoke about a second ago. So let's add a new variant on top of that. Our sense of self-worth, our sense of self-esteem, our sense of self-value, it really comes from, more than anything else, the promises we make to ourselves that we keep. I said I would do this, and I did it, right? And then in your brain, right? So because what really, when you think about what worth, what value, what, you know, kind of esteem really is, estimation, right? When you think of those things, it's really a pseudonym for trust. How much do I trust something? Right? If I trust something to a high degree, it has high value and high worth in my life. If I trust something to a low degree, it has low value and low worth in me. When we have self-esteem issues, there's something about ourselves that we don't trust, right? And for most of it, so I've been really really fortunate to have worked with really, really wealthy people across the course of my life, right? And I say fortunate because I got to understand some really important things by working with them. All the same angst that the kind of Mary who's struggling to pay her mortgage this month is feeling is being felt by my mega millionaire, and even some I've had 3 or 4 billionaires that I work with, right? It's been felt by them as well. The exact same stuff, right? Not over the exact same trigger. They're not worried about paying their mortgage, but they're worried about some expense in their life that is going to be challenging for them to meet, or that's going to be, right? They're kind of the same relationship difficulties are coming up. The same my daddy didn't love me enough stuff is coming up. So all of the same stuff. So what I got to see was actually that it's a very human thing to have a lot of these self-worth issues. My billionaire clients, who are, some of them have been amongst world leadership, if you want to put it that way, right? And many of them you'd know on the cover of magazines and see on the TV, right? These same people are experiencing the exact same stuff as Mary. What the hell is going on there, right? So we go, it really comes down to this. The way I describe it is, each and every single one of us has in our schema, our way of seeing things, a one day when I make it, I will story.
Absolutely.
One day when I make it, I'll stand on those mountaintops, and I'll go to these places, and I'll do these things, and I'll have this stuff, and right. And so what happens with the millionaires and billionaires is they achieve a lot of their one day when I make it's really quick, right? But don't necessarily become the person they said they'd become, right? They may be very aware that they're selling out on some of their own needs in order to meet other requirements of their life, right? those people have a high degree of alcohol and drug addiction, and a fairly high degree of suicide rates, or at least suicide attempts. The reason being is that they don't. If you've got everything in the world, if you've got all the money and the yachts and the cars and the houses, and you fly first class every place you go, and maybe even on your own private jet, it's quite despairing if you think I can have all this and still not feel happy. I still have
Yeah.
a low sense of self-esteem. At least Mary, who's struggling to pay the mortgage, she believes that if she gets the next promotion at work, life will change. And if
Yeah.
one day I set up my little side hustle, life will change. Right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
all of these different little aspects. So the one day when I make it, I will. So I've gone around the houses, but the one day when I make it, I will story is a really important story for self-esteem. Did I, or am I in the process of doing what I said I would do when I made it to this point, or have I stuck it on the back burner? Most of the people that I find that are unhappy in this like middling stage, right? They're successful by most of their peers and family members standards. They're
Yeah.
not super successful like mega millionaire billionaire people, right? But they're doing really well in life, and they drive a nice car, and they live in a nice house, and they take a few holidays a year and all that kind of stuff. They're doing all right, but they're not doing what they said they'd do.
Yeah.
They're, right? They're not being who they said they'd be. That part of their storyline was that they would take more time off work, they'd spend more time with their family, they'd put the kids first, they'd put the wife first, the husband first, the blah, 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 whatever. This is what they said they'd do, and they're not doing it. And so, if self-esteem is related to trust, which it is,
Yeah.
their trust for themselves is low. And if their trust for themselves is low, they go, well, kind of, I'm full of shit.
That's interesting because we make this big thing about trusting other people, yet we don't look at ourselves. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's quite
It's
shocking, that, isn't it?
it's the most important part. If you don't trust yourself, this is actually what becomes so damaging in things like PTSD and various elements of trauma. Your trust for yourself goes down massively. You're full of self-doubt, right?
Yeah.
You're like, well, I was this guy who stood on stages all around the world and wrote books about mindset and did all this and did all that, and now I'm this guy who wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning and can't get back to sleep, and who sits staring at walls and bursting into tears, and like having weird flashbacks and hallucinations. Like, who the fuck am I? Like, all my life is, all of the things that I thought I knew about myself were gone until
Yeah.
I built back again, until I built them back in, pulled on those threads and redefined them and started stitching them back into the tapestry again.
Yeah.
Most people don't do that, and what they're doing is they're hoping against hope that it will somehow fix itself, and it never does. It never does just fix itself. You have to do something with
Yeah. Would you say that you kind of meet you hear challenges all the time that people go through, and they'll talk about themselves as a survivor? Do you think you actually meet your authentic self when you've been through something and come through the other side?
I'm thinking on that one. You meet your authentic self. So this is the challenge, right? So I'm sure you're aware of the thing, like the driving statement that I use, right? So it's a very common one in some respects. You can look online today and you'll see "you are enough" everywhere, and I believe that you are enough. But for me, the idea "you are enough" never really explained. If you're enough, why are so many of us still struggling? If you're enough,
Yeah.
why are
Mm,
so many of us still sad? If you're like, and it comes down to this: that you don't have to be more than you are right now in order to be happy, successful, and free. But in order for you to experience that as your reality, you have to start being all that you are,
yeah.
right? All that you are. So, in answer to your question, do you meet your authentic self? Every part of you is your authentic self.
Hmm.
Every part. The bit that's lazy, the bit that's a bitch, the bit that kind of has has a desire to cheat, the bit that kind of has a desire for extreme fairness, and like will jump in front of a machine gun to save a complete stranger. All of those are you. Every part of it, right? Sometimes we get more invested in one or two facets of that, and we lean
Yeah.
into those, and it's because we lean into a few facets that we ignore these other elements of ourselves. And as we ignore these other elements, we diminish our trust in ourselves, because the brain knows, no, you know,
Yeah.
you you listen to rap music, and kind of you sing along with the N word and you do that, but out in public you're morally you're, oh god, I hate people that do this and I hate people that do that, right? And you know that in the background you're doing a lot of those things. Your brain stops trusting. And if
Mm.
you come along to this point where you go, well, actually, no, like I'm deeply profound and philosophical as a person. Like the things that come along in my head on any given day, like really, really deep shit, right? And then I am deeply profane, right? The disgusting off-color jokes that I will tell about things would absolutely shock most people. You go, what? Dax said that? Like, yeah, Dax said that. I'm really serious. I'm really silly, right? I'm an extremely gentle man, right? And if I get triggered in the right way, my rage is terrifying to be like really terribly incredible Hulk level of exploding that rage on people, right?
Yeah.
I'm all of those things, and
Yeah.
because I know I'm all of those things, I give each one of those things its place, and I try and use each part of that accordingly for the situations, the circumstances, the people that I'm with, all of that kind of stuff. There are things that I say to a close group of my friends. It's not that I wouldn't say them out in public because I'm ashamed of saying them. It's just it's inconsistent with where I am, what I'm doing, and the impact that I want to make on that group. Yeah.
Yeah.
But with someone else, it's completely consistent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so kind of when it comes to this idea of let's say growing in our self-esteem, which is just another way of saying growing in self-trust,
Yeah.
right? You can't trust yourself when you lock parts of yourself in a box, deny those parts of yourself, say they don't exist because you're ashamed of them, right? I mean, if you can be like you can be, there's place in every human being to be the paradox that they really are,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Right? Kind of an absolute kind of upstanding citizen, kind of on the stage, and then kind of completely out there in the bedroom. Like you can be all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think what happens is most people have these ideas that if I'm that, I can't be that, because if people
Yeah.
find out I'm that, like they'll stop giving me accolades for that part.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? Well, they'll stop patting me as soon as they realise that I'm into this stuff over here, or that I sing that, or that I'm into crap. All the bit that they've come to know me for, that's all going to be diminished, because we're all waiting. Kind of in the obviously the in the gay community, they talk about coming out of the closet, right? And I was chatting with one of my clients just recently about it. He's a gay advocate, and I was saying, you do realise that it's not just a gay thing, right? Everyone is coming out of the closet about something. Everyone is living their lives in the closet about more things than
Yeah.
most people are aware of. Oh, I hope they never find out about that. I hope they never find out about this. I hope, like, oh, I've got to keep that bit of me quiet and secret, right?
Yeah.
Most people are closeted in some way.
Yeah. You're so true. Yeah. You really are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just the gay thing. It's not just a
Yeah.
trans thing. It's a human thing. Right,
Yeah.
we're hiding parts of ourselves, and in the gay community, it just happen to be hiding your sexuality, right? And because for the longest time, sexuality wasn't an easy talking point, it had a bit of extra kind of weight behind the shame and the guilt and everything that went with it, right? But we're all hiding, parts of ourselves. And as you can, if you want to get into kind of really coming to a point of very high self-esteem, again, just a pseudonym for self-trust. If you want to come to that, I'm not saying that now you have to kind of come on stage in a G-string and kind of start twerking because you go, no, this is part of who I am. I'm going to like twerk on stage in front of Bob Proctor, right? Like that's right, but just be aware that no, these are all me, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But every part of me doesn't deserve to be on stage at the same time. Kind of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
What stage am I performing on right now? And relative to the stage I'm on, this is the best performing artist for this stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all me.
Exactly. I'm so glad you say that, because when I'm out with my friends, I'm like, just taking my brain coach hat off for a minute, just why I say this, and I'll put it back on in 10 minutes. And I just like stress out about something, and then back on, I'm all right now. But yeah, I think you've got to embrace every part of you, haven't you?
Yeah.
And be comfortable with every part of yourself as well.
Yeah.
Basically, nobody's perfect.
And isn't that a paradox in itself, right? Because in a way, we kind of are. If you allow all of you to be like, I don't think any of us should seek perfection, but in being all that you are, you're pretty much perfect.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Perfectly imperfect. That's what I say.
Yeah. There's put it this way, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Right. And most people have decided through their definitions that there's something wrong with them, and that wrongness needs to stay hidden. And that hiddenness causes them to doubt themselves, mistrust themselves, hold them in lower esteem.
Yeah.
Right. And like, it doesn't, it doesn't serve you to not tell the truth to yourself. If in Conversations with God, one of my favorite books, I've coached with Neil Donald Walsh as well, but in Conversations with God, it talks about these like levels of truth telling, and the very first level of truth telling is tell the truth to yourself about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Tell the truth to yourself about yourself. It doesn't mean that, right? Like if you got some freaky sex fetish, I shouldn't have even put the word freaky in there, right? But if you've got some sex fetish that's kind of, it doesn't mean that you have to go out and declare it to the world, right? The world doesn't really need to know everything about you and your sex life, right? But tell yourself the truth. Oh, right, yeah, I'm really into this, right? If it's to do with a political outlook, and you right now you don't want to go on Facebook and post like, I hate Donald Trump, or I hate Biden, or I hate, right? But tell the truth to yourself. Go, yeah, I really can't stand that person. I'm like, I don't align with their values. I don't align with them. If your truths about success and all the rest of it, actually, I don't believe that it's all about money. Or at this stage in my life, success is measured solely by money, right? And if that's your truth right now, tell yourself the truth. And then it extends into tell the truth about yourself to another, tell the truth about another to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And all of these kind of layers of truth telling bring you to eventually getting to the point where you're telling the truth all the time about everything. I'm not there yet, right?
Yeah. It's difficult for people though, isn't it? It's like things with like social media, like, because you're seeing everybody living their best lives, it's a perfect life. So when you start to look at yourself, people think, oh my God, there's something wrong with me, because the world looks perfect. So some people find it quite hard to actually look inward.
Yeah, they do. And it's because they spend so much time looking outward, right?
Yeah.
You get good at what you practice, right? If your life is looking on a phone screen all day long at the show reels of everybody else's life looking brilliant, you get brilliant at saying, oh, that's what a successful life's supposed to look like. Right? But for those same people, right? I've actually seen them, right? I've been on a beach in Thailand. I've actually seen someone kind of, hey, and welcome to today's podcast, right? Or whatever, right? And they're talking, they're happy. As soon as they put the phone down, they go over and have an argument with their missus or their husband. Like, oh, why didn't you put that camera on me there, or why didn't you do that? And like, well, that wasn't that
was very authentic there,
across the thing, right? Where another area that I come across quite a lot is that there are a lot of my peers that are, let's say, coaching coaches to be more successful, and those same peers really want to work with me, but they say they can't afford to work with me, for example, right? And the money is tight at the moment, and yet you watch one of their videos, and their videos will say about how successful they're being and how great life is and all the rest of it, right? There's a disconnect. If you are a coach who's selling coach training to other coaches, say, oh, I've had a quiet couple of years, haven't done as much, but yeah, I'm coming back in again, and I'm leaning back into this. I'd love a few of you to come join me on the journey, right? But instead it's oh no, life is brilliant, and let me get this photo next to this Lamborghini and all the rest of it, right? Those same people are saying, oh, I haven't got the money to do that, and I can't go here, and I can't do this, right? the bigger the gap between your experience of life and the projection you're giving to other people, the less trust you have for yourself.
Yeah.
Try and project as close to it. Try and keep your actual experience and what you're projecting to other people. Try and keep them as close as you possibly can. Sometimes you might go, well, I'm not going to say I just had a really, really massive blow up with my boyfriend or my husband or my wife or whatever. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to come into a video and just air my dirty laundry all over the place. But
Yeah.
you could come on and say, hey, it's been a bit of a stressful day today, and being a recipient of stress today really got me thinking, right, about how we handle stress and what are causes and sources of stress. Like, you don't have to come on and go from I had the biggest blow up with my partner I've ever had to, hey guys, hope you're having a great day. Right? You start to create this disconnect, and your brain stops trusting you. It says you're full of shit, and that's where this diminished self-esteem comes from.
Would you say that, because I speak to a lot of people where it's other people that are the problem to people, if you trust yourself more and have more self-esteem, I truly believe that you automatically start to deal with other people better. Is that how you react to people? I honestly believe if you trust yourself, that you will know how to react in situations. Your time with other people and spending time with other people and talking to other people becomes easier. What's your take on that?
Yeah. A person who trusts themselves spends a lot more time in response rather than reaction.
Yeah.
Right. So a person is maybe giving them shit in a conversation or whatever, and they'll respond to that, and then eventually their response might be, look, this is going nowhere, I'm shutting off this convo. And and it's this idea again about being fair. The first person you should be fair to is yourself, right?
Yeah.
This conversation is now unfair to me. It's dragging me into places I don't want to go, over a topic with a person that is not really going to let me have my fair say. If I can't be treated fairly, then I withdraw. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Versus what we tend to do is, I'm not being treated fairly, react, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you get into reaction, you shut down the whole communication stops happening, because communication becomes competition.
Yeah.
Right? And that communication, it comes from the Latin, right? Communion, to become one with, right? So when we're becoming one with a person, we're leaning in.
Yeah.
And they're leaning into us. When we're in competition with people, we start pushing.
Yeah.
Right? It's not leaning in; it's kind of forcing our way in. And we're no longer becoming one with. We're saying, I'm going to stand on the highest box of the podium. Right? This is my argument to win. The trouble is, in relationship, and particularly our important relationships, but it's true for all relationships. If a relationship is based around competition, everybody involved in that relationship loses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. That's how it works. If you have a relationship that is based on competition, everybody is the loser.
Yeah.
Right? Because you might have air quotes, won your argument, but you've just damaged the relationship in order to win it. You've just damaged trust. You've damaged the sense of that person feeling safe in your presence and everything else. Like, that's gone. And as that goes, so too does the relationship diminish.
Yeah, you see that quite a lot, don't you? It's quite common, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most relationships become competition, and they become that way by default. And it's
Yeah.
almost because that's what's modeled out in the world. Is it's like, it's not so much that you have a right to be heard, it's that you have a right to speak what you want to speak, right? The hearing part is for me. I get to decide whether I want to listen.
Yeah.
We're here on a podcast right now having this conversation, right? If anything I've said up to this point has, morally offended you in some way, you have the ability to go, Dax, actually, you're a bit different to what I thought you'd be, and some of the things that you said of like that just doesn't jive with me. I'm going to call an end to it at this point.
Yeah.
Right? Any relationship can do that. Like, any relationship can hit the stop button and go, yeah, that's not what I want. That's not what makes me feel safe. That does not what makes me feel included. Right? I don't want to play that game anymore. Most people don't do that. So what they do is they lean into the competition. They go, oh, well fuck them then. I'm like, that they got this point in on me, is now it's my turn to score a point back. Yeah, but what about? And that's where whataboutism comes in. What about that time when you did this or you said that? Right? And now
Yeah.
you go, it's like tennis back and forth. You go, I scored my point now. And of course, once you score a point, they're going to go, oh, right. So you want to bring that up?
Yeah,
Here's,
from 10 years ago. And
right? Yeah. What about that time that you were around my mum's and you said,
yeah.
right? And so basically, competition runs in opposition to relationships. And if you can,
So
if you can do nothing more to a relationship than agree that we will only communicate, but we won't compete, right?
yeah,
And
I like yeah.
if you can tune into the fact that, hold on, we've started competing,
Yeah,
and we are both going to lose here.
yeah,
If we keep shooting off our mouths at this point, we are both going to lose. The
yeah,
fairest thing is to shut this conversation down. Doesn't mean never come back to it. It means that right now we're not the people that can have it.
yeah. Interesting. They're right. So there's a question. Well, I asked this to quite a few people that I interview, mainly because I get this question quite a lot in the group that I coach, and then I go into different groups and coach their people as well, and they're having the same issue about, and you spoke about it, about peers. How important is your environment and the people that you have around you? Because a lot of people that are on the self-improvement kind of journey will look around them, and the people that are close, they're comfortable where they are. So it's like the lone wolf. So self-development can be quite a isolating experience if you've not got people around you. And that's where I see a lot of people that go a little way, start improving, and then revert back to their environment.
Yeah, we are basically shaped by our environments. Remember, the brain's a pattern recognition machine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the patterns it's really on the lookout for are environmental patterns. But like, obviously, you know, I'm sat in my my man cave, right? Kind of a glorified garden shed at the moment. That's one environment.
Nice.
That shed is within my garden. My garden is within my house. My house is within the street. The street is within the community, and so on. Right?
Yeah.
We have a whole bunch of different environments. So in my mind map program, mind map mastery, I actually teach that there are 6 primary environments, right? The 6 most important environments that we work to. So the first one is our inner self, and that's our values, our beliefs, our morals, and like our linguistics, our definitions, all of this kind of stuff. That's environment 1. It's the most important environment in the truest sense, right? Because it shapes how we perceive all the others, right?
Yeah.
If my definitions of what a relationship should look like are skewed here, I'm going to see it manifest out there.
Yeah.
Right? You're never going to be a good enough partner for me because there's things that you do that I don't want you doing. There's things that you don't do that I want you doing. Right? And it's all based upon my inner environment, my inner definitions. So that's environment 1. Environment 2 is what I call the naked self. In other words, the physical self, the body. Right? How we see ourselves, literally how we see ourselves, when we look in a mirror or a reflection, has a massive impact upon how we feel. Right,
Mm-hmm.
as much as how we feel has a massive impact on what we see, right? But so these are all closed loops in many respects. But that environment is really, really important. And there's so when I used to, here's an example. In the early stages of my PT, or not in the early stages, in about the mid stages of my PT career, I just hit on magic, right? The most magical transformation skill that I'd ever encountered up to that point. And it worked for men and women, but it worked with women brilliantly. And it was this: they would come along and they'd be talking about all the things about their body that they didn't like and they wanted to change. And clearly, right, if you've got like 2-3 stone to lose, I can't. There's nothing I can do about that today. I can start you on the journey, but there's still even though the results that I could help people get were faster than most, it's not like snap your fingers and away we go, right? But in the early state, I'd be asking, so when you get there, what will you look like? Okay, and what will your hair be like? And what will your skin tone and everything else be like? And what about you know? And they'd be looking at me like kind of weird, right? And then like I'd get this exact picture, go right. So today we're gonna start on the journey toward the fat loss and the muscle toning and you know, smaller bum and all that stuff that you've told me that you want, right? And that's great. But you're part of the deal now, as well as attending the training and taking care of the nutrition. In this first week or in this first 2 weeks, is I want you to go and get your hair done in the way that you described, and I want you to go and get your nails done and kind of, your eyebrows plucked and all the things that, not because I was telling them, but because of the things they described to me about how they
Yeah.
would look. And they would go away and they would get their hair done and they'd get their nails done and they get new lippy and kind of all the eyebrows and all that kind of feminine grooming stuff. They'd get it done. They'd come in on the next training session, looking, feeling, and they go, "Oh, I feel absolutely fantastic." They've only dropped like a pound on the scales, but
Yeah.
they're feeling great, right? And
Yeah.
whilst we shouldn't, our lives aren't just about how we look, right? Most of the time, like particularly in Thailand, I walk around in a pair of shorts and flip flops and nothing else, right? That's it. That's my life, right? And it's how I feel most comfortable and it's how I want to be most of the time, right? But there's part of that then, that when I'm out there at times and I'm feeling a little bit softer, a bit out of shape, or my training's been a bit off, or I've been drinking too much wine at weekends and stuff, I go, right, the kind of, it's about the things that I can do to kind of get myself back to my physical self. That, not a perfect vision of it, but the accept the one,
Close. Yeah.
yeah, the one that I look at and go, yeah, I feel good at that. I feel okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's an important thing. And most like if you look at people when they get depressed, and particularly women, but men as well, but kind of they start wearing the the kind of the baggy tracksuits to and from school when they're picking up the kids, and they don't, they hide their hair under a baseball cap, and they all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, actually, if you can, you're not doing it for other people, you're doing it for you. If you can say, actually, my job is to, whatever it is, look in the mirror today and feel really happy with what I'm seeing, not because it's a fake thing, but because it most closely represents my ideal for myself.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that.
Go,
Yeah.
go and do it. Go and do it.
Mm.
Right. Make yourself feel that little. Sometimes it's just that little percentage of feeling a bit
Yeah.
better that actually allows your brain to come back online and do some of the things that you've been holding up on.
Yeah.
Right? So that was a real magic trick in personal training back then. Like, and it was just something I taught my entire team. Like, it wasn't like an instruction. It was more like an invitation. Like, hold on, there are things in your life that make you feel better about how you look. Why aren't you doing them? Go do them. Right.
That's it.
So that's environment 2. Environment 3 is your home environment. Right. Our home environments are often a good reflection of our internal environment. Right.
Yeah.
You look around it, it's like messy, or is it ordered? Is it full of things that you love, or is it full of things that are just there for show? Like, do you have one of those show houses where nothing is ever allowed to be moved? Okay.
Yeah.
So is that all then about kind of keeping up the appearances of being a good housewife or housekeeper or kind of provider or whatever? Or is it kind of the other way, and everything is kind of disheveled and all over the place? My house is somewhere in the middle. We're definitely not a museum. I used to be a soldier now, and now kind of like a reservist and an Army Cadet Force instructor, right? So I've gone back to doing that. So there's like bits of what camouflage army kit all over the house most days, right? It's all a bit crazy, but it does also show you some of the things that are important to me: my army stuff, my books, my this, my that, right? But now you've got your home environment, so kind of taking care of your home environment to the degree that it's it's reflective of you. Then you've got your working environment, right? What's my working environment like? And some of us, we don't have working environments that allow us that much personality. But whatever they do allow, turn it into yours and go, this, right?
Yeah.
I've got a little cubicle, and most of it has to stay really sterile and all the rest of it. But I've got a little kind of, I've got a few little things there that are exclusively me, and they make me feel happy every time I look at them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got the wider environment, like the big wide world. And most people go, yeah, there's fuck all I can do to the big wide world. Like, that's not mine. But it's not about shaping the environment. It's about shaping how you use it.
Yeah.
So here's a good example. In the mornings, when I still had my studios in London, I'd leave here in the mornings and drive to work one way. Or actually, I used to drive in and drive out exactly the same way. And I realized that kind of I'd arrive at work most days feeling stressed, and I'd come home feeling stressed, and kind of, it kind of got out of hand. And I was like, well, what's the experience I really want to have? Like, well, if I leave a certain way, like I live out near Epping Forest, if I leave a certain way, I can drive past all the trees. Most mornings I'll see deer over in the meadow, and there'll be this, and it will just put me in a different place. my story to myself was like, yeah, but it takes longer to go that way.
Mm.
Like you know, and it was about half hour, 40 minutes longer if I went that way than this other way. Like, yeah, but that half hour, 40 minutes, you'll arrive at work with it, if not with a smile on your face, you'll arrive feeling peaceful. And is that peace worth 40 minutes of your life? And it turns out it was. I was a
Yeah.
completely different person during my day when I did that. So then I started. I couldn't come back that way because the roads were too busy that way, and it would cause more stress in the evenings coming back.
Yeah.
So I got into this thing where my going to work was like a loop. I went that way and I came back this way, and it
Yeah.
made me a lot happier,
Yeah. Love
right?
that.
Right. And so how do you use your environment? Similarly, you know, when I was in the throes of PTSD and I was this grumpy sod and I'd come home and, you know, I could make myself function at work, but when I got home, you know, my wife would offer, how was work? And I go,
Mm.
right. I
Yeah.
turned monosyllabic, kind of not really that interested in talking. So, you know, I would pull up. I had these triggers. I would pull up 2 streets away from my home. Literally pull up, put on some Buddhist meditation music, right, which I'd listen to for 5 or 10 minutes. Meditate a little bit in my car, right. 10 minutes later, drive around to my house, pull up on the drive, and be a completely different person to my wife when I first came in, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's using your environment. You go, okay, I've reached this corner. By this point, I either have to genuinely feel different, like I have to feel like the kind of person that I want to share with my wife, or I have to stop and at least try to become him,
Yeah.
right? I might not, I didn't achieve it every day, by the way, but I could sometimes take the edge off. And if that
Yeah.
edge was just, I took 10 or 20% of me being a grumpy sod off of myself, at least my wife got to meet someone who was a bit closer to the person she chose.
I
Right?
love that. Yeah.
Is this a bit contrived? Yes, of course it is. And does it take a bit of work? Yes, of course it does. Right. But
Yeah.
you're paying the price anyway by not doing it. Right. Now, you're going to
Yeah.
pay the price one way or the other. You're going to pay the price in a shitty relationship with either yourself or with other people, or you're going to pay the price in the time and the effort that you have to put into, you know, kind of bringing yourself back to your center and getting yourself back to the person that you want to be. Either way,
Yeah.
you're paying the price. Well, one is constructive and the other one is destructive.
Yeah. It's just up to you which one you choose, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a choice.
So
Yeah.
which one do you choose? And you know, environment is great because environment provides us with so many triggers,
Yeah.
both good, both positive and negative, both skillful and unskillful, right? But those triggers can be right. One, I've reached this street and I'm still in a foul mood and I'm thinking about that dick at work who I've just had a big argument about. Do I want to bring this version of me through my street door? No, I don't. Okay, pull over.
Yeah.
Some music on,
Yeah.
say, chant, do something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 10 minutes later, I'm still not quite there, but the real kind of anger and passion that was there, that's evaporated now. And now I'm just a bit frustrated and pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think my wife can deal with frustrated and pissed off. What she shouldn't have to deal with is angry, ranty Dax.
Yeah.
Frustrated and pissed off Dax. You know, hopefully she can help that version of me. She can't really help angry and frustrated Dax, who's kind of, you know, saying about how shit the day was and how shit this person is and all that. Like, and she shouldn't have to.
Mm. Yeah.
Does that
And
make sense?
it's nothing difficult or massive, is it? To just calm down. It's just
Yeah.
little things that you can do. That's amazing.
But yeah,
But yeah.
we have so many different environments, and if we learn
Yeah.
to use all of them, and if we lean into saying, well, what can I influence in each of the environments? What is it that I can do? Because we're very quick to tell ourselves that there's nothing that we can do. But if in each environment you can improve it by 10%, the overall environmental change and the overall sense of self changes massively. Pattern recognition machine, it uses those patterns as
Yeah. Yeah.
predictions,
Yeah. Yeah.
responses, outcomes,
Yeah.
right? Like most people are trying to change the outcomes, but without really trying to change the inputs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we can be full of blame.
Yeah.
Well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It displaces the impetus for us to have to do anything by saying that the world is a dick, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
Everybody
your
else,
problem. Yeah.
everybody else is doing it wrong. I'm doing it right. I shouldn't need to change for them. Screw
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
Right. And instead going, well, it doesn't look like the world's looking at changing anytime soon. So this is on me.
Yeah.
I own this problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You're so right. Well, one last question for you. I asked this to all my guests. I don't think it's going to stump you. It stumps everybody else. But Dax, tell me 3 good things about yourself.
3 good things about myself. I have a crazy sense of humor,
Hmm.
which I really really like. It's actually funny. My youngest son is 23, right? So I've got 4 kids. They go from 35, or should be 35 this year, down to 23. And we were talking the other day about how weird his upbringing was, right? Because he was brought up on Eminem, kind of NWA. Uh, I don't. You probably don't even know who John LaJoy is, right? Kind of he's just like this Canadian comedian who sings these really outrageous songs, right?
Right.
By today's standards, Jesus, he wouldn't even be allowed. He wouldn't be allowed to publish on YouTube now. But these are all things that I brought my son up on, and like really strange humor. But so we have a really good relationship. But mad sense of humor, absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, I do really like about myself, and I really enjoy about myself how deep I am.
Yeah.
I am deep. I'm a storyteller, a poet,
Mhm.
a philosopher. I read a hell of a lot of philosophy, um, and yeah, I love that part of myself. I think a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking, and rather than it being burdensome, it's comforting.
Yeah.
Uh, like just being able to kind of just reflect on things is was one of my superpowers. Um,
Yeah.
so kind of a simplicity, storytelling, and systems. Systems come easy to me. The way my brain works is I see really complex things. I see the same stuff that other people see, but it's like I have X-ray vision on them and go, "Oh, really? All you're saying is this," and
Yeah. Yeah.
I can do that with science papers. I can do that. Go, well, yeah, like that's the complicated answer. That's the kind of lab neuroscientist answer for what's going on. Here's
Yeah.
the street neuroscientist version of it,
Yeah.
and without it losing too much of its real true science. Like you
Yeah.
know, whenever you break something like that down, you do lose some of the core science. And a true lab neuroscientist would go, yeah, but you forgot to mention this and that and this and that. Well, yeah, but does it really change anything for the end user? No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Exactly.
It changes a lot for the lab technician. It doesn't really change much for the end user. And at the end of the day, neuroscience is useful to the degree that it's applicable,
Yeah.
not
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
to the degree that we know that this neuron and this synapse and this kind of whatever, right? It's not. That's not the most important thing. So I enjoyed that about myself, and I enjoy that I'm emotional. I'm actually quite an emotional person.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I actually enjoy my emotions. I feel when I'm happy, I feel ecstatically happy.
Hmm.
When I'm sad, I go into deep sadness. I feel all of my emotions strongly. I would say I probably, and my wife would probably corroborate this. I probably cry most days, as in like I can cry watching, bloody if I watch New Amsterdam or something like that, and I was like sit there like this. Or but I could cry from moving poetry or the character development in a book that I might happen to be reading and go, wow, Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
and
I'm a
but
bit like that. If you tell me something nice, I'm off like a rocket.
I'm but the flip side is that I also have it like I said it earlier. I have incredible Hulk levels of rage. Thankfully, I'm able to contain that, and it doesn't really come out. But it's there. That my desire to really hurt someone is there at times.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have the control not to do it, but my desire is there, and I go, yeah, but that's not the right choice,
Yeah.
right? But I'm also really happy that that part of my humanity still exists in me. It hasn't been neutered, and I haven't turned into
Yeah.
some weak and passive person.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's there, and I know that if it was ever truly needed, like if I had to defend, and I have in the past, defended people or had to do things in order to stop someone else being hurt. I know that that part of me can switch on, and I really like that about me. Like I
Mhm.
really enjoy all of my emotions.
Yeah.
The only time that I tend not to enjoy them is when one part, PTSD for a long time, for several years, caused me to be in the dark side emotions for much longer than I would have chosen.
Yeah,
But the flip side is a lot of good came out of that, because my understanding of neuroscience, practical neuroscience, and human behavior wouldn't have existed if I hadn't gone so deep in the dark myself.
yeah,
I would believe that most people weren't getting what they wanted out of life because they didn't have a clear enough goal, because their willpower was weak, because they didn't want it badly enough, or because they were self-sabotaging. And it turns out that none of those things are true.
yeah.
You
But I
know,
think you have to experience it for yourself, don't you, to be able
yeah,
to help impact others.
yeah.
So where can people find you? Because I know you said you've got work-wise, you've got things coming up. Can people
Yeah.
contact you and get on
Yeah, so
courses?
obviously I'm on Facebook, and I have literally a unique name. There's no other Dax Moy in the world, right?
The
So
one and only.
yeah, the one and only. There are other Daxes and there are other Moys, but there's no one with that name combination. So it's only me. You can find me on daxmoy.com, which is my personal website, which is in the process of being facelifted at the moment. Awaken the Guru Within, which is a website
Mhm.
for coaches and entrepreneurs who are trying to kind of find a way of building their business without losing themselves, or without becoming some icky, yucky kind of caricature of someone else. And mindmapcoach.com, which is where I train coaches in some of the stuff we've been speaking about here, the actual neuroscience of human transformation. So that's a year-long diploma there. So yeah, those are the main places.
That's it. We'll put all the links up for you. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
No
I feel
worries at all.
absolutely honoured that I've been able to pick your brains for the last hour.
Yeah,
That's it,
no
Max.
worries.
So yeah, thank you for being such an amazing guest. If anybody's listened to this and liked it, make sure you share it with all your friends and on Facebook and all over social media. Thank you, Dax, my lovely, and I will catch up with you soon.